Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Indy Investor Pod. I am joined today by Brooks Rothschild. Excited to have him on here. So I've got to know him over the last couple of years and just a good dude. So somebody you can just sit on the porch with and drink a bourbon with and have a good conversation about real estate, about life, and about some Big Ten football too, as well.
Yeah.
So sports fan, but how's it going, Brooks?
Good, man. How about you?
Doing well, man. So yeah, excited to have you on here and just excited to have a conversation with you. So I feel like you and I we get along pretty well and we have some pretty good conversations. I'm like, man, we just need to jump on a pod and have one of our conversations just on a podcast, put out some information, man. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah, not a problem, man.
Yeah. So I'd love to just start with just getting into a little bit of your background. So kind of people can understand who you are, kind of get to know you a little bit. So where did you basically I know you're from the Maryland area and stuff like that, ended up over here in Indianapolis, and then all of a sudden you're getting into real estate and stuff. So kind of how did that transition happen from you going from, you being a transplant into Indy, which I am as well, and then you get into real estate as well. Where did that bug come from, and how did you kind of get into that?
Yeah, so I guess trying to keep it somewhat short. Back in Maryland, I was a Baltimore County police officer, and that was kind of my full-time gig for a while. And then one of my buddies there, obviously, like a lot of people, kind of turns them on to bigger pockets, and you start doing some research, start reading a couple books. So um, we started doing some flips, couple rentals out there before I actually made the move out here. My wife and her family are from out here, so we moved out here, transitioned out of law enforcement, which was for the best, and kind of sold all my stuff out there and moved money closer in the Indianapolis area. First year or two, I was still learning the market out here for a while. Listening to this podcast, obviously, listening to a couple other people talk about the Indy market, Syria, everything like that. Just trying to get a good feel for it before I actually jumped in. Um, During that transition out to Indy, one of my good friends offered me a position, which helped me transition out of law enforcement to here. Um, During that, we purchased a couple businesses, which I helped him get started and running and everything like that. And then once we found out that we were going to have a little one here at the beginning of the year, I went to him and said, "Hey, I'm getting pretty busy on the real estate side as well." And I mean, and to be frank, I made the same amount of money doing that with not very many hours and putting in 50 hours a week or so there.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to see him grow up a little bit and make my own schedule with childcare and everything like that. So I think now's the time to start transitioning into that. Let me know how you would like me to do that, what that looks like for you, what works best for you. So it was kind of a perfect storm of everything. Just and mostly with my little one coming. I want to be able to see him grow up. I don't want to be at work. Where's dad at? He's at work. Why isn't he at the game? And it's just easier for my wife as well. So if I'm here and we can kind of schedule things around that a little easier rather than one day a week.
Yeah, man, that's quite a transition, kind of going from, a Baltimore County, police officer, kind of
Yeah,
what that like looking at from the kiddo perspective of being in that role, and then now you're like, wow, you're pretty available, and you set your own schedule and you're doing stuff like that. So that's
yeah.
incredible, man. Congratulations on being able to make that transition. So that's great.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's a little weird having this much time on my hands to figure stuff out, but I mean, it's going really well. I'm really enjoying it, and I get to see him grow up every day. So,
Yeah, that's good. I want to kind of dig into that a little bit more if you don't mind. Of just kind of like, so I always hear people kind of going through this transition of, just to be completely transparent, I always hear people like, say like, oh, I'm quitting my W-2 and just going into full-time real estate. And sometimes in the back of my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, is that the right decision for you? I kind of know your business a little bit. Like, is that all right? Like, then other people, I'm like, yeah, man, it's about time. Like you should have done it a year ago. You should have been like, how did you kind of go about that? Like, was it all about, you guys having your son? Was that like the biggest trigger for it? Or like, how did you know you were going to be, hey, it was the right time for you. This was the right move for your family. And also just being secure and like, hey, I know I'm going to be able to make enough to do this and support what we need to do as a family.
yeah, I think, yeah, definitely the perfect storm of things with kind of the last 2 years have been pretty good on the real estate side for our family, and with that actually coming into play as well with our son coming in, I was like, I mean, I already have a lot of systems and processes in place, um, which I think a lot of people need to have before they transition, obviously. And I knew the business that I had coming in with the little amount of hours that I was able to put into it just at nighttime or on the weekend. I was like, it's probably the right time to put 100% of my focus on this instead of 20%, 10% of my focus on this, and really get ramped up and get this thing moving a little bit more. And once you see some numbers and some metrics come in for marketing stuff that comes in, it's not really gambling in a sense anymore, is where you kind of know what you put out there, what's going to come back. And obviously that's going to shift a little bit, but I mean, as long as you're paying attention to it, you can figure out what's working for you and what you want to put a little bit more money into.
Yeah. Definitely. I think that's really the way to go about it. That's what I always like kind of, I preach to people and talk to people about it. Like if you can get your business to be a math problem, then you're not really
Yeah.
making decisions. You're making small decisions here and there and how much to ramp it up or how much to pull it back and things, but really you're just looking at the numbers and allowing that to really run your business, which is great. It sounds like you've done a great job at that and things. I do want to kind of go back to something you said too, of you're like, going from where you're working, 50 hours a week, and then now you're not. I mean, you have a kiddo at home, so that's taking up a lot of your time and things. But
Yeah.
and you're kind of in that position too. I feel like a lot of people go through this of like, they're working their W-2, they're working their regular job and things, and then their real estate stuff is a side hustle. They're going at it, and they know like, okay, I have like an hour here today, or I have 3 hours on the weekend, or 2 hours in the evening, whatever it is. So you just run through stuff and you're just hustling and getting things done. All of a sudden you're put in this position where you have, as much time as you need to dive into this. So how do you know, like, how are you going about that of like understanding like, man, where do I spend my time? Where do I focus? Am I just making myself busy, or I'm actually being productive? Like what's your mindset when it comes to kind of knowing what to do and when?
I would say that was probably one of the hardest transitions at first, just because when you have so few hours, you're kind of going to tackle the things that are most important then. When you have a lot more hours, once you tackle those most important things, it's like, then what do you do with your time?
Yeah.
And for me, the best thing for me is to actually like sit down in the morning or the night before and write down like, okay, here's the things that I definitely need to tackle. Here's some things that are a priority, but they don't need to get done tomorrow. And then some other things like, here's some like, I need to reach out to Brian to see if he wants to go to lunch or like, and stuff like that, which can be done at nighttime or something like that. It's not like your highest priority needs to get done today, but I
What?
found
Come
that.
on, man. I'm a high priority. What are you talking about? No, just
Well,
kidding.
yeah, you're right. Very true, but I can shoot you a text at any time. I don't need to get it done
True.
right now.
True. Yeah. There you go.
But yeah, it was just really, that was probably the most difficult thing. But I found writing down and figuring out what I need to get done first, and kind of almost making my own schedule for the day.
Yeah.
Obviously, some wrenches get thrown in that sometimes with either business or with the kiddo and stuff like that. So but yeah, that was definitely the biggest help for me, is actually kind of organizing my time instead of just kind of being scatterbrained.
Yeah, that's great. That's one of the best. I read a book. I forget what the book actually might have just called the Stick at Six, but the premise is the Stick at Six of what I do. Kind of the same thing, is like it really started from this guy. He basically took his top six things that he needed to do throughout the day, and he put post-its on his mirror. Those six
Mhm.
post-its every morning, and then basically as they got done, he would just take them off and things like that. But those were the top six priorities that got done. And I still do the same thing. Actually, I do it for our whole team, where we have a spreadsheet. We call it the Stick at Six. But what are the top six things you need to do that day, and just at least knock those out. If you're going to knock those out, you're going to have a productive day. One little tip I'll throw in here too. This kind of comes back from my teaching days. Is I realized real quickly as a teacher, like if you give students an assignment, they obviously all finish at a different time frame, and they all, you have the one kid that finishes in 5 minutes, you have the one kid that finishes, in like 45 minutes and things. But that kid that finishes in 5 minutes, he's always going to come to your desk and basically be like, hey, what do I do next? What do I do next? Well, it was really, I started basically, I always had a bulletin board in my room, in my classroom, that basically said, I'm through, what do I do? So it's just like a list of different activities, different, mind games, different brain teasers, different, higher level thinking type things that students could do if they were finished with what we were working on, and they're kind of put on their own. I still do the same thing, and that really helps me prioritize my day. I go through my Stick at Six, knock out those top priorities, but it's always like, oh man, I have an extra hour. What do I do? I look at my list of basically like, hey, what are some extra things I need to do, and stuff like that. So that's what you're kind of doing as well, like that high priority stuff, and then the stuff that can be done, hey, what's the stuff I want to get done, and kind of that secondary thing. So awesome job, man.
Exactly.
Any tips for somebody that's kind of getting into that and kind of changing their mindset on like just having free time and just going through that? Is that really it? Just like kind of prioritizing and making lists and helping yourself out that way?
That has been the biggest difference for me for sure. I'm sure some of the people who are actually quitting their W-2 and going into this may not have a newborn at home, so
Yeah.
they might have a little bit more difficulty. But usually when I can set my day up and know like these need to get done today, and then once I get through that, kind of like what you said, once you get through that, now I can either start working on these other couple of things, or I can start doing some other things that are, I mean, that are fun, honestly, that you want to be doing. That I mean, not that you want to not want to be doing all of it, but um, that you really enjoy doing. So you can kind of set your blocks out that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one thing that you said too is I think was really important. I want to make sure we capture it again as well. Is that you were kind of, you mentioned that when you were working your regular job, you were getting to the point where you could kind of see like, well, I'm kind of making as much money over here as I am, in this job, so I'm probably going to be okay and things. So I think that's really important too for people to understand. Of it's you have it's knowing what to do with your time and knowing what to do with your passion and things like that. But it's also being stable in what you're doing too. I think that's something that some people kind of like, ah, man, I did a couple deals. Like I'm going to be okay. I'll figure it out. And that's great if you're a gunslinger like that. But I think when you want to make a business out of it and build it from business is knowing what your numbers are, knowing what you can pretty much make, and then running it from there. So it sounds
Mm.
like you've done a good job too. Like, hey, I know I'm going to be stable. I know I can handle this with doing this amount of work. If I obviously have a little bit more time, I'm going to be okay. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
How did your wife go about of that kind of process of like, hey, I think I'm gonna quit this job and jump into real estate full time and stuff. So I know that can be a tricky conversation as well.
Yep, yep. She was definitely a little nervous because she's definitely a little bit more conservative than I am. She's more the saver and likes the safety net, and I'm more of the investor. So that took a little bit of easing into and talking through it a lot. But I mean, overall, I think it was best,
Yeah.
especially because the industry that I was in, summers were very high priority, and you worked a lot more during the summer than you do during the winter. So with that coming around, and he was born in June, and I was like, like I don't really get any kind of like paternity leave or anything like that. So now might be the time to do this. I mean, it's kind of, and she kind of agreed to it. It was a perfect storm of everything coming together at once. But yeah, that's definitely a difficult conversation when you kind of have your significant other as the more conservative saver, and you're the let's invest it for our long-term goals and everything like that.
Yeah.
So
How important do you think it is, in like getting that partner or significant other on board with what you're doing too? Like, is your wife interested in real estate too? Does she get into it? Does she want to know the numbers? She like, hey, you do your thing, and I'm like, what's your guys' dynamic with that?
at first she was more like, hey, you enjoy it, that's your thing, that's what you enjoy doing. I'll stay out of it, stay out of your way, and you just keep doing what you're doing because you seem to be having fun and successful at it. And now she's little by little, people start asking what does Brooks do for a living now, and she says real estate investing, and they're like, okay, what does that mean? So
Yeah.
so which like by trade like makes her start getting, she tries to explain it sometimes, and she's like, I don't really understand how this works. So she's starting to get a little bit more interested in it, which is kind of helping a lot more as well. So she's starting to get a lot more interested in how things work, and just financials of deals work and everything like that. So it's coming along a lot more now that she has to actually explain it to people what
Yeah.
I do now.
Yeah. So I think, from what I've seen, is having conversations with different couples that are kind of in the same scenario and stuff like that. Like, we've talked, like my wife is in our business now and stuff. She's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And I think by bringing that in, of just like you said, of just like kind of been going through things and explaining things, like make sure you're bringing them in and making that partner, that is significant other, bring them in and what you're doing, and make sure you're sharing with them what they're doing. Because once they get on board, I mean, they're all in, and it just makes things a lot easier and ready to go. So that's exciting, man. Excited for you and what you're doing, and it's really cool. So I do want to kind of get into, so what is your, you don't mind sharing with everybody, like kind of what is your goal of what you want to do with, with real estate investing? So, you just talked about your wife says, "Oh, yeah, you're a real estate investor," but what do you want to be doing, Brooks? What is that kind of what is that goal for you? What that looks like?
So, I mean, every property we kind of look at or I kind of look at differently and say what kind of strategy it works best for this property. The ultimate goal is to keep it as a buy and hold, if it calls for it. Just obviously we want to try to keep all of them if we can, but that's just not possible, or it's not the right decision for that property all the time. And if we don't keep them, we're either going to either wholesale them or wholetail them, preferably wholetail them. But I mean, some things work out well. I'll shoot it over to Ronnie or something, and he's like, I can offer you this for it, and I'm like, okay, well, that works too. I mean, I can't keep this property, so I mean, we'll send it over to you guys or somebody else or
Yeah.
whoever is looking for it, or even just try to just list it with somebody. So
Yeah. So that's really cool, and that's a great thing. And I see a lot more investors doing that, and I'm excited for a lot more investors to do this too. Is like where they are starting to run their own systems, their own processes, doing their own marketing to kind of to basically find the deals that they want. Like your ultimate goal is to find buy and hold. That's what you're looking for and stuff. Obviously,
yep.
as you have those things coming across your plate, they're not all going to fit into there, or or you might run out of money that particular month, or whatever it is. You guys run into some scenarios where like, oh man, I can't keep everything because everything doesn't fit. Everything's not a deal for you. So doing what you can do with the other stuff too to be able to monetize it in some way. Oh wait, can I go ahead and just can I take this down and list it, or can I just connect with an agent to list it, or can I sell it to a whole or partner with a wholesaler who has a buyer's list and things like that. So that's awesome stuff, man. What advice do you have for people that are going through that kind of that change right now of like, okay, I'm getting some deals right now on my own where whether it's for their flips or whether it's for their buy and holds, and they kind of get that itch of like, hey, I think I'm going to start doing my own marketing. What are some
Yep.
tips that you have for them of like getting into that mindset of because that's a whole other beast rather than like getting on every wholesaler's buyers list and connecting with
Yeah.
agents and buying deals that way versus marketing and talking to sellers. 'Cause that's what I always tell people too. Even though we're a wholesaling a wholesale company, like we're really a marketing company. Is really who we are. That's what we do. I
Mhm.
mean, it's marketing and sales is that it's that kind of business. So, what advice do you have for somebody that's kind of on that end of stuff that's going through that of like, hey, I'm going to start marketing on my own. Maybe start with like kind of how easy, how difficult, how kind of that is, and then like kind of what you do or some tips you might have for them.
Yeah, the hardest part of that for me was, which I never thought I'd actually get into marketing direct to seller because I mean, when I started, I was just going to either straight to wholesaler or auction sites or MLS or wherever.
Yeah,
Was learning how to actually do it, honestly. And YouTube can teach you a lot of things. And if you know a real estate investor that does it well, just picking their brain, asking them what they're seeing, how they're doing it, I mean, there's so many different softwares to use. Just ask them what works for them. And a lot of them, I mean, like you have a YouTube channel where you can go in and actually see how they'll actually teach you how to do it. I mean,
yeah,
how to pull lists and how to do this and that and what companies they use and prefer. Some of them won't tell you anything, but some of them will give you actual companies that they use or they own that they like. So that's kind of how I got into that side of it. And I really only do direct to mail. I don't do any text blasting or calling,
yeah,
cold calling or anything like that. So that's really kind of the probably one of the businesses that I need to grow a little bit more, but getting into that, it's been a kind of a game changer because just off direct mail, it's been stuff coming in. You can always monetize, like you said, like even if there's a dead lead, you can send it to a realtor that you know and say, hey, I'll take a commission or not a commission, but a split with you or something
yeah,
or a referral fee, and you can run with it because it's just not going to work on our end.
yeah.
So.
I mean, that's generally the way things work. If you're whatever kind of marketing you're doing, if you're doing, pay per click, or you're doing direct mail, or you're doing cold calling, whatever it is, like honestly, kind of nationally, the way the numbers stand of like if you get 20 leads in, more than likely one of them is going to be a deal for you. One of them is going to be a deal for an agent. One of them is going to be a deal that you can novate. One of them is going to be a deal that you can do owner financing on. So there's a lot of different options of just building out your network and things. And Brooks, I think that's something that you've done a great job of, just like kind of building that network and network. And I know last time we had lunch, you mentioned of like, man, this is what I want to be doing is like just talking to people and networking and going to lunches and like kind of building that network of yourselves or building those relationships up and things. So I want to talk about that real quick of how important is that for somebody to understand of like, hey, like it's great to be in the hustle and it's great to be in the grind, but it's also just as important to make as many connections as possible. And then when do you know is like, hey, okay, I need to focus on the relationships and connections, and maybe I need to hire somebody to do this and things like that. So how important like is that to for somebody or that entrepreneur or that real estate investor in general is to like really do focus on their network and their connections that they're making?
Yeah, and I think everybody hammers that home, right? Like networking is so important and
Yeah.
everything, but and I really didn't it really didn't sink in with me until like I started making connections around here and going to lunch, grabbing a beer or something like that. Like, I mean, one of our mutual friends were, I mean, you can find deals anywhere. I mean, somebody might be trying to get rid of something and to transition to a different project, and you say, okay, well, let's see if we can make something work, see if we're able to do it. I mean, you just kind of fall into deals sometimes just by networking. I
Yeah.
mean, and it's kind of crazy. And just by networking with one person, they'll put you in touch with somebody else, and then you go out to lunch with them, and it just kind of spirals. And it's
Yeah.
kind of become my favorite thing to do, to be honest. I'm at, like you said, the bottleneck of where I need to start hiring a couple of people to do day-to-day stuff so I can focus on that a little bit more. So
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's really important. I think it just comes back to too of like, just being a good person and like being, volunteering information for them, but also, asking questions. I mean, it's kind of a give and take thing. And if you're that person that, is asking you questions and maybe asking for help, but also volunteering or whether it's volunteering information and volunteering another resource or time or whatever it is, of putting it out there. If you're somebody that's going to, I guess be like just a good person when it comes to that kind of stuff, like it's amazing, like what kind of connections you'll make, and people will reach out to be like, hey, I don't mind you using this and stuff like that, or hey, here's a resource that I use, like you can use it too, and things like that of making connections through that. So,
yeah,
um, what's good?
just being a little bit open and not so like everything's a secret just kind of goes a long way sometimes with a lot of people.
Yeah. What are some tips that you've done of like you said that maybe you didn't realize that at first, but what are some things that you've done recently that basically put yourself out there and to make some more of those connections and to network a little bit more? So yeah, what are some things that you're doing there?
Yep, I'm just shooting emails to people in the market, and if somebody you refer me to or a couple other people who've been on this podcast I've reached out to, and just say, hey, would you guys like to grab drinks or just talk? We don't even have to talk about real estate. Like I know some people just get sick of
Yeah.
talking about real estate all the time. So I
Yeah.
was like, we don't need to talk about real estate. We can just go hang out.
Yeah. So
So
I literally had a conversation like that last week where I was like talking to somebody. I was like literally talking for like we talked for about half hour, 45 minutes about LeBron and the Lakers and what they're doing and stuff. Just being a sports fan and just having a conversation. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, hey, by the way, I have a project that I haven't been able to sell. Like, do you guys want to take a look at it? I'm like, yep, 100%.
exactly.
So,
Something will pop in your
um,
head, or you'll get an email the next day saying, hey, I forgot to mention this to you. And I mean, just little stuff like that. Just honestly, just it's almost like making friendships.
yeah.
I mean, not just networking. So
Yeah. So, and then we all have that common goal of just, wanting to help each other out, but being in real estate, because we all, honestly, we're all going after maybe the same types of properties, but, in reality, not every property works for every person and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
no, that's great stuff, man. Any other tips or any other insights that you have for somebody that's out there of whether they are somebody that is going through, hey, I'm working my W-2, I'm ready to make that transition out of it, or hey, I'm ready to start doing this full time, or hey, I think I'm kind of in that position where I've been buying my own deals from agents or wholesalers or whoever. I'm ready to start doing my marketing. Any other tips or just insights you have for anybody that's in there in that transitioning phase like that you've been through over the last couple of years?
Yep, just definitely keep learning, that's for sure. Because I mean, our market's changing. That was one. I mean, it took me 2 years after I moved here just to feel confident enough to jump in. I probably could have done it sooner, but with the amount of hours that I had allowed to work on this, it was took a little bit more time. But just keep learning the market. It's always gonna change a little bit, and your buy box is gonna change. Just keep learning. That's the main thing. Keep learning, keep making connections, and make connections with people smarter than you.
Yeah. So love it, man. That's great insight. I love that. It's great advice. What are you seeing as far as like the indie market goes right now? I know you're doing some direct mail and talking to some sellers and picking up properties for your portfolio and things like that. Are you seeing much of a shift? Is there more activity on the direct mail side? Is there less? Are people still asking for a lot, or where are the prices coming in? What are you seeing as far as the market goes?
People are definitely still call. I mean, we're still getting I guess our response rate is still pretty high. Our cash per deal has gone up a little bit, which we kind of expected.
Yeah.
I think it'll come back here in a little while. I've also seen a couple people that we've had pretty close to having deals with get scared by interest rates and everything like that. But I mean, overall, everything's still strong, still getting a lot of getting a lot of returns on our marketing and everything like that. Still, it might have slowed down a little bit, but I mean, everything is still very strong here for sure. I mean, and I think it always will be.
Yeah. So yeah, 100%. I think that's what Indianapolis is built for and what it's good for and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I was just on a call with our PPC guys, pay-per-click, Google ads, our guys yesterday. And just over the last 2 weeks, the return on, or really just the uptick in leads coming in through PPC through our pipeline was up 285% from like the previous 2 weeks to this 2 weeks. And I know our direct mail, we've been hitting a lot more calls. So really in that, if you're in that position where you are somebody that's out there that's looking for deals, I think we're already into a phase. I think it's just going to get a little bit more and more where it's going to be really easy to buy a property. Honestly, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to sell a property.
Yeah.
It's just, it all comes down to those right numbers. So if you're buying it for the right price, you're gonna be able to sell it for the right price, of course, and things like that. But some of those days where we buy a property and we make a $30,000 mistake on a rehab, or have a
Yeah.
$30,000 mistake, like, and then we can make up for it on the end on the buy side. I think those days are gone a little bit and stuff. But what I'm
Yeah.
seeing from the seller side, it definitely, there's a huge uptick in like kind of the seller activity and the leads that are coming in, and people, just the interest level and things like that. So something that's really cool when you're on our side of when you're doing direct marketing and things like that, so which is really cool for the buyers out there too, of knowing that, like, hey, just make sure the numbers make sense. And there's gonna be a phase two, I think, where with agents, wholesalers, with everybody, where prices might seem a little bit high, but it's just wait, kind of make sure you're running your numbers the right way and things like that. And always just put it out an offer. That's what I've realized
Yeah.
of just throw out an offer. So it's sometimes of I had a wholesaler a couple of weeks ago that sent me a deal, and he had it for like, I think it was $125,000, and came back, and I just offered him like 50. I was like, that's the most I can pay for it. And he's like, can you do 55? So it's things like that. People are still trying to hit some home runs, and people have some crazy deals like that, but I just making offers. I think it's the most important thing that you can do in your
Yeah.
business and stuff.
Make an offer that works for you. I
Yeah.
mean, don't be embarrassed about it. Just say, hey, this is the offer that works for us. Here's why. And if it doesn't work, move on. I mean,
Yeah.
so
That's what I
you
look
can,
at. If somebody gets mad at my offer, probably not somebody I want to work with anyway. So
yeah,
they gotta be okay with me being transparent and honest with them, and as I can pay
exactly.
for it. So
Yeah.
sounds good. Any tip on that, of just how analyzing deals or anything in the shifting market?
Um, we're still kind of analyzing the same,
Yeah.
honestly. We're kind of like what you said. We're expecting where our offer is going to be a little higher than where we really want it to be, or where we thought it would be. It seems to be that's just the trend where it's going. You kind of just got to grasp it and not be so afraid of it. It's just where it's going to be now.
Yeah.
But yeah, just keep analyzing and keep throwing out, like you said, throw out a deal on everything. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you send somebody a deal. If you send somebody marketing saying you want to buy their house, you better send them a deal or send them a offer.
Yeah. That's really what they're looking for. They actually don't know if they want you to buy their house or not, but they do want an offer from you. So at least give them that. That's what they're looking for. So
Yeah.
good stuff, man. Really appreciate it. Thanks for joining me on here. Great conversation stuff. Always appreciate you and your insights, man. So if somebody wants to find out just more about you or connect with you or anything, what's the best way for them to do that?
Phone number 410-903-2294. Shoot me a text would be best, just with the kiddo. I can't really answer my phone all the time.
Yeah.
Email is brooks@brofindy.com. Either way, I'm on social media, just first and last name. Pretty easy to find. So
Good stuff, man. Always appreciate it. And yeah, for everybody, all the listeners out there, if you need anything from me or need any help or have any insights on episodes you'd like us to hit on, or topics you want us to hit on, more than happy to help you out. Hit me up at brian@simplewholesaling.com. And with that, that's a wrap for this episode of the Indy Investor Pod. And we will see you guys next time. Take care.